In today's video, we're going to talk about how to adapt to the Italian lifestyle while still maintaining a US identity. For those of you that don't know me, my name is David. Welcome to my channel. I'm originally from Connecticut, and for the past 15 years, I've been living here in Italy, and 8 of those years have been here in Rome. The purpose of today's video is to help out fellow Americans, but this could also be for anybody who is not from Italy, is living here in Italy, and maybe is just not feeling quite at home. All right, let's get started. Iniziamo. So I'm actually of Italian origin. My great-grandparents were from this country, and while I was living in the United States, I always felt a strong bond, a strong connection to this culture, and this is primarily why I moved here. So finally in 2009, after numerous trips here, I decided to take the plunge, and I moved from my small town of Tallinn, Connecticut to Napoli. Now I must say, my initial transition was not as difficult as others. Although I must say, this was the first time that I had ever lived in a country outside the United States, and this is really the first time that I had ever lived without English. Naples was a hard transition for numerous reasons. They have their own special dialect, Napolitano, which at first is very difficult. Naples is also a city where you really don't want to be an introvert. No, this is a very social and chatty city, and so if you are somebody who likes to be by yourself, then I think life could be kind of difficult there. However, I survived. I had a few good friends, I dated, and gradually I was able to insert myself into Italian society, into Neapolitan society. There's something else which is rather significant, which clearly shows that I did not grow up in this country, and that is, so if you are in a similar situation, here's what you can do. It doesn't matter if you're in Naples, if you're in Rome, Italy, or just another foreign country. My best advice is this: try your best to integrate into that society. But how do you do that? Cold turkey. Cold turkey in the sense that try to distance yourself from other Americans or other people that speak your language. That's probably the best thing that you can do in the beginning. I think, however, that one of the best ways that you can integrate into Italian society, and I had this feeling myself, is when you begin to work in this society. Yeah, work is ideal because this way you are really up close and personal with that culture, with the language, you can make friends, and then once you do that, then you can begin to expand your network. And by the way, networking is key in this country. Other things that you can do is talk to the people. Let's go inside. Fortunately, they still remember me. Hi, Rosario, remember me?
Hi! Ciao ragazzi! Come state?
Do you remember me?
Yeah. Ciao David!
Rosario speaks fantastic English.
No.
Ciao. And honestly, if you don't speak Italian that well, I think it's almost a moot point. The reason why is because these people are relatively patient, honestly. They won't correct you, and they greatly appreciate any effort on your part to make an attempt to communicate. It shows that, hey, I want to learn more about you. Probably though, one of the best ways to integrate yourself into Italian society, I would say, is to be in a relationship with somebody of that country. And then if you want to go one step further, have children in this country. For me, in recent years, this has been really educational, and I have felt even more immersed in Italy. All right, now let's get into the other half of this video. Why I am still an American, and what are the American things that I do in this country? I asked my wife why she still feels I'm an American. Actually, one of the first things that came to her mind was bread. Il pane. Pane, bread. What? Yeah, to be honest, when I was growing up in the United States, I really didn't eat a lot of bread at mealtimes. No, it wasn't a staple. Here, however, it is still king. Yeah, actually, it took me a while to get used to the idea that they just consume a lot more bread than we do, especially when I went to get a sandwich at the Salumeria, the deli. I was kind of dismayed when I saw that I would get like this much bread and a very thin layer of meat and cheese. So I says, no, non va bene. By the way, a proposito, if you happen to find yourself in that situation and you don't want a whole block full of bread and no meat, you can simply say this. You can say senza mollica. And in essence, what that means is that they're going to take this sandwich, gut it, and so you get a little bit less bread and hopefully more meat. Even to this day, when I go to the grocery store and I pass by the bread section, I still don't instinctively tell myself, I need to buy bread for tonight's dinner, for today's lunch. I buy it more often than I used to, but no, I still don't buy it instinctively. And actually, that's fine. Next, let's talk about checkered shirts. And ironically, this is something that I never used to wear in the United States, but I've only started wearing them in recent years. And I think it's because maybe I started to miss the States a little bit and I wanted something to remind me of home. For the record, I'm not one of those proud Americans, USA, USA. No, that's not me. I appreciate where I'm from, and living here all these years, I've begun to recognize the good things that are in the United States. The good, the bad, the ugly, like anywhere. However, I will never call Italy and America the best countries in the world. Why? Because I think the word best is almost ridiculous because it's purely subjective. It's not backed up with fact, it's merely an opinion. She also said that I wear informal clothing. Yeah, I've always been a jeans and t-shirt kind of guy, a bit less compared to when I was living in the United States. I have adapted a little bit to how they dress here, but I would say that I tend to prefer informal when formal really should be the attire. The other thing that she has noticed is that I still tend to prefer large quantities of food. I don't know, maybe it's because I just have a high metabolism, or maybe it's because in the United States we tend to feel gypped if we pay a lot of money and we get a plate with almost nothing on it or just less than what we're expecting. So one of my favorite snacks from the United States that I still eat here is peanut butter and apples. Italians know peanut butter, but it's still not widely bought here. And when you go to the supermarket, it's evident because you get a dinky little jar like this, and I've seen prices as high as over €6. It's ridiculous. You'd be surprised at the number of horrified looks that I've got, the bad reactions. Que schifo. And then I ask these people, oh, have you tried it? No. I says, okay, if you haven't tried it, then you really can't give me your opinion. I can't. What I'm getting at is this. If peanut butter is something that you love, if peanut butter and apples is something that you love, like myself, don't worry about the opinions of other people. If they shun this, if it's something that you absolutely love, if it's a part of you, if it makes you happy, just keep doing it. Other US things that I do. Meal times. So let's just say that I don't exactly adhere to US times anymore, especially dinner. I mean, you will never catch me eating dinner at 5, 6 o'clock. No. 6 p.m. for Italians and for anybody here is really a snack or aperitivo. One more note about eating in this country. I think that this is one area of life where you are kind of forced to eat at the same times that they do. And the reason why is because very often, if you show up at a restaurant at 6 or maybe 11:30, 12 o'clock for lunch, they may not be open, and so you can't eat at that hour. Granted, this is if you're eating out. If you're eating at home, you have a bit more flexibility, obviously. However, if you want to meet up with Italians and you propose US eating times, you're not going to have friends for very long. Possibly, I don't know. As I mentioned before, growing up in a small town in Connecticut and also more or less as an only child in the middle of the woods, I've never liked to be the center of attention. Why is that important? It's important because that does affect my mentality and how I approach other people. So I'll give you an example. When I go to church, I don't always look for the pews with other people around them. I might sit a few rows back and I'm fine with that, okay? Give me my space.
So here's something else that makes me somewhat American. As you can see, it's raining, and I am in Monteverde Vecchio, which is one of my favorite neighborhoods here in Rome. Now, even during normal days, there's not a lot of foot traffic here. Today is Italian Labor Day, so there's not a lot of people, and that's exactly why I came out here, because I wanted to just go for a walk. I wanted to just get out of the chaos a little bit. Also, I don't think the locals would come out because it's raining. I don't know, personally, I have no problem with coming out here in the rain and just exploring.
You have to speak Italian. I don't see how you cannot learn the language and live here long term. English, Italiano, io uso tutte e due. I use both languages. However, English is still a very big part of my life. Apart from the fact that I still teach English, I also converse with my wife in both languages, and with my daughter, it's only been in English. And honestly, for me, that's very important. She's a little parrot in both languages. I would say that she prefers Italian, although she speaks English to me plenty of times. What's that?
A monkey. Papa. Where Papa?
That's right, that's Daddy.
Laura.
And Laura, very good. More in Italian as to be expected because she's surrounded by Italian and the English comes from me in cartoons. So we're the minority, but it is very satisfying to see the results, really, to see her understand me, just to see her use English words in certain situations. One last thing about language, I think it's really important to maintain your native language, and you can do that in many ways. Before I go to sleep, I still like to read in English, watch movies in English. because at the end of the day, I'm tired, my brain wants to relax, and I don't want to concentrate on Italian. There's something else which is rather significant, which clearly shows that I did not grow up in this country, and that is the cold. You can clearly tell that I'm not from here because very often in the spring months, maybe March, April, I'm outside wearing a light jacket or a t-shirt and everybody else is bundled up like it's the North Pole. And so I still got like a sore thumb. But the good thing is I don't care. Yeah, as you can see, I still support U.S. teams. Hockey and baseball are still my passions. Hockey number 1, baseball number 2. And I'm really cool with that. It does put some distance for me between myself and the other Italians, especially the ones that go crazy for soccer. That's just not who I am. Oh, another big one that just came up is the idea of practicality versus aesthetic value. So, in my opinion, I get the impression that between American and Italian culture, I think that Americans first look for the practicality in something, especially when it comes to the house. Let's talk about the house for a moment. Short story. So in the previous apartment where we were living, up until recently actually, we had to have a hot water heater installed. Now when the technician came, he said that, okay, now this thing is big and bulky, so is that okay? I says, yeah, that's fine. Why? He says, well, even when I have to put this thing out of view, like even when he has to put it maybe hidden in a bathroom somewhere, he said that a lot of his clients complain. They says, no, it looks ugly, it looks terrible. And I told him, I says, listen, this thing is well out of view, and even if it wasn't in view, I still wouldn't care. Now granted, I wouldn't put it here in the living room, but I think you get the point.
All right, so here's the water heater in question. Ciao. It's out of sight. It's functional. I really don't see why this thing has to be beautiful.
Now, don't get me wrong. I am not saying that the Italians are not practical people and that they don't think about the practicality of things. No. However, if you're going to compare somebody from North America and Italy, I think that the aesthetic value of something is of more importance to the Italian than it is to the North American. For example, in the United States, I've seen a lot of ugly furniture, but honestly, if you ask them if they care that it's ugly, nah, it's comfortable. What do I care? Please understand that these are very broad generalizations, and this is just my perception of the reality between both cultures. That's it. I think the best piece of advice that I can give anybody who is looking to make the transition from the United States to Italy is be kind to yourself. Now, granted, I realize that the phrase be kind to yourself is kind of surface level, but honestly, it goes many layers deep. And here's how I interpret this. Don't radically change yourself. Don't change the core of who you are. If you have a core belief, if you have a very specific way that you like to live your life, if you have very strong opinions about something, then don't change them just to please your host country, especially if it's gonna, really alter your personality in a way that you're not comfortable with yourself. Because if you do that, then it's like you're living a lie almost. I say that because I think I was almost in this situation in the first couple of years of living in this country. I was so gung-ho about rediscovering my Italian roots. I wanted to really integrate in this country to the point where, maybe I was no longer American, but after a while, it just began to feel just not real. Finally, I came to terms with who I am. I didn't grow up in this country. I grew up in the United States, and I think the country where you grow up really does define who you are, the way you think, and it forms the core part of you, in my opinion. I think living in a foreign country really does reinforce the expression be yourself. And in Italian, you say it this way, si te stesso, or si te stessa. When you step out of your comfort zone, in this situation, moving to a different country, you really are forced to re-examine yourself, and then you fully understand the expression of be yourself. Because also, I think that in part, you have to redefine who you are, and that's not easy. And in my situation, it took a number of years, but I can honestly say that I am much more comfortable with myself than I was when I first moved here, and it's wonderful. Also, being a parent will, I think, reinforce who you are, especially if you want to pass down your language and your culture to your child. I have experienced this since becoming a parent almost 4 years ago now. Yeah, I speak English to my daughter. We watch cartoons in English, and I do my best to introduce U.S. culture to her, and I'm cool with that. I really am. I just simply want her to know that her dad comes from a different culture, he speaks a different language, and I think that this is also part of her identity as well. It's important to know who her parents are. Comment time. Okay, now I want to hear from you. So if you have move to Italy or a different country, what tips do you have for making the transition and maintaining your US identity? Let me know. Grazie mille per l'attenzione, ci vediamo alla prossima. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate your time. See you next time. Bye bye.